What can you buy with $1.5 million? You can buy a limited edition supercar, a McLaren 720S or 750S, a Ferrari with a clear lineage, even a vintage Lamborghini Aventador. You can own something that roars, accelerates, and turns fuel into adrenaline. That same amount of money could buy real estate in some of the most expensive cities on Earth. In Manhattan or Los Angeles, it could buy a modest 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, compact, expensive, and fiercely competitive. In Texas, Florida, or some parts of the Midwest, that same budget could buy a large, modern family home, 4 bedrooms, a garden, maybe even a swimming pool. With $1.5 million, you could even enter the aviation industry, a used propeller plane, a light private jet. Yet, there's a wristwatch, the Bugatti Chiron blue sapphire crystal, famously worn by Cristiano Ronaldo, that costs about the same, sometimes even more, than all those extravagant things. This watch doesn't outrun time. It doesn't generate income. It doesn't take you anywhere. It just sits quietly on your wrist. Yet, the super rich line up to buy it. They order it, wait for years, and pay millions of dollars without hesitation. Why can an object with such limited practical function become so ridiculously expensive? Because it is the Bugatti Chiron watch, a collaboration between Jacob & Co., one of the most unique names in high-end watchmaking, and Bugatti, a brand that has built its identity on pushing engineering to absurd limits. The watch is directly inspired by the Bugatti Chiron's W16 engine, not symbolically, not stylistically, but mechanically. At first glance, it does not even look like a traditional wristwatch. There is no familiar round case, no classic dial, no quiet elegance. Instead, what you see looks more like a miniature engine compartment than a timekeeping instrument. Inside the watch, the metal parts are arranged like pistons. The shafts and bridges have an industrial feel rather than a decorative one. Everything about it evokes movement, power, and mechanical aggression, qualities we usually associate with supercars, not watches. So why would anyone want to spend $1.5 million on a watch that does not function like a regular watch? Why would two brands, renowned for luxury and seemingly unrelated, choose to collaborate on such a product? And most importantly, why is this object among the most expensive watches ever created? This is not just about telling time. Hidden within this watch is a story of engineering pride and the psychology of ultimate wealth. But before we dissect the sapphire crystal, the piston movement, and the tourbillon, there is a bigger mystery waiting to be solved. What exactly are people paying for when they buy a Bugatti Chiron watch? The history of the Bugatti Chiron brand and its creation is also one of the major answers to the question. Why is the Bugatti Chiron as expensive as a house? Bugatti has never simply sold cars. From the beginning, it has sold the pinnacle of engineering. Each Bugatti is designed to answer a single question: how far can performance, precision, and excellence go before reaching the physical limit? Speed, power, and superior engineering are not side effects, but the product itself. Jacob & Co., on the other hand, comes from a very different field in the world of watches, but shares the same obsession. The company has never tried to adhere to traditional Swiss watchmaking rules. Instead of refinement through restraint, Jacob & Co. has pursued technical limits, larger movements, more complex functions, and mechanisms that most brands would consider unnecessary or even impossible to achieve. When these two philosophies collide, the result is not the refined elegance you typically see in a luxury watch, nor is it a marketing gimmick. This collaboration is not simply about putting a logo on the dial, showing celebrity endorsement, or trendy luxury. Rather, it is a deliberate attempt to translate supercar engineering into high-end watchmaking, employing the same logic, the same extravagance, and the same unconventional attitude. The Bugatti Chiron watch is born from this shared belief that the most meaningful creations lie at the boundaries of what is technically feasible. Not because they are practical, but because they demonstrate that limits can be overcome. When the Bugatti Chiron is mentioned, it immediately sparks debate, because it cannot be neatly categorized into any existing category. In the traditional high-end watchmaking industry, names like Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet represent heritage, sophistication, and continuity. Their watches are built on centuries of accumulated rules such as balanced proportions, familiar case shapes, discreetly complex functions, and a quiet confidence that displays wealth without ostentation. These brands sell heritage. They sell longevity. They sell the idea that true value is timeless. Then there is Richard Mille, often described as a breaker of tradition. Richard Mille challenges tradition with high-tech materials, exposed movements, and extremely high prices. Yet even Richard Mille respects the basic formula of watchmaking. His watches still retain their round or barrel shape. They sit comfortably on the wrist. They still look like watches, even with such a daring manufacturing technique. But unexpectedly, the Bugatti Chiron watch emerged, existing outside of all of this. It does not resemble a classic watch. It does not prioritize wearability or elegance. Its movement is not hidden behind a dial, but is fully exposed, dramatic, and intentionally mechanical. When you activate it, the pistons move, the shafts rotate. It functions less like a watch and more like a miniature engine infused with life. This is where the big debate begins. Is this really a watch? Or is it a mechanical work of art that merely happens to display the time? That question unnerves purists. Traditional collectors often dismiss it as excessive, impractical, or even vulgar. But that criticism misses the crucial point. The Bugatti Chiron watch does not attempt to compete with Patek Philippe in terms of tradition, nor with Audemars Piguet in terms of elegance, or even with Richard Mille in terms of modern luxury. It operates on a completely different philosophy. It completely disregards the traditional rules of watchmaking. So why would a watch that defies any rules of watchmaking cost as much as a house in a city like New York City, Los Angeles, or San Francisco? To understand why the Bugatti Chiron is so expensive, I have to set aside the myths and look at the reality behind it. The cost is not determined by advertising budgets or celebrity ownership. It is due to limitations in materials, labor, and a deliberately restricted supply chain. I start with the case. The watch is housed in a solid, uncoated, undeyed, and unlaminated blue sapphire crystal. Sapphire has a hardness of 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond. That alone changes everything. Sapphire cannot be stamped or shaped quickly. It resists cutting, polishing, and tolerates even the slightest flaws. To process it, manufacturers must use tools with diamond tips, operating at slow speeds to avoid cracking. Any vibration, sudden temperature increase, or misalignment can instantly destroy weeks of hard work. The blue color makes this process even more arduous. Sapphires are cultured with carefully controlled metal oxides mixed into the crystal structure, creating the color from within rather than on the surface. This internal color increases internal stress, making cracking much more likely during shaping. Therefore, many sapphire blanks are never finished. Once the rough shape is achieved, the most time-consuming stage begins, manual polishing. Each watch case requires over 120 hours of manual polishing, performed by highly skilled artisans. The goal is not just transparency, but optical perfection, perfect clarity, parallel surfaces, and distortion-free visibility from every angle. Just a slight misstep, an uneven movement, and the entire watch case will be ruined. The next reason is its movement. Inside the sapphire case is a mechanical structure that closely resembles an engine more than a traditional watch movement. It contains 578 individual parts, many of which are custom-made and cannot be outsourced. At its core are 16 fully functional pistons, arranged and synchronized to mirror the layout of the Bugatti Chiron's W16 engine. These pistons do not move symbolically. They move linearly when the mechanism is activated. The movement also includes active turbochargers, not for decoration, but as mechanical elements that visually reinforce the resemblance to an engine. The internal power transmission of the watch demands extreme precision, because everything must operate smoothly on a microscopic scale without excessive friction or wear. Adding another layer of complexity is the 3-axis tourbillon movement. Unlike a standard tourbillon, which rotates on only one axis to counteract gravity, this movement rotates simultaneously on 3 axes. This significantly increases the mechanical complexity, assembly time, and risk of failure. Very few watchmakers in the world are capable of assembling, adjusting, and servicing such a mechanism. All of this leads to the final limitation: the practicality of production. This watch is not mass-produced. It cannot be manufactured in large quantities. Each one takes months, sometimes years, from crystal cultivation to final assembly. The failure rate is high. The number of artisans capable of completing the work is very small. The limited supply is not due to strategy, but to physics and human endurance. And that leads me to the conclusion that the Bugatti Chiron is a product where speed cannot be bought with money. It cannot speed up the crystal growth process. It cannot shorten the polishing process. It cannot simplify a movement designed at the limits of mechanical capability. Here, the real currency is not dollars, but time, patience, and skill. By now, everyone can understand that the Bugatti Chiron is clearly not designed for the average person. It is not for everyday wear, practicality, or even comfort. Its true target audience lives in a very narrow world, where function is paramount and meaning is the next boundary. This watch is almost exclusively found in private collections and ultra-luxury events, where rarity is more important than utility. It is worn by those who already own everything that money can buy. Cristiano Ronaldo is perhaps the most obvious example. As a brand ambassador for Jacob & Co., and a renowned collector, he has been publicly associated with the Bugatti Chiron Sapphire crystal. For him, the watch is not simply for telling time. It is a combination of identity, success, and mechanical luxury. Floyd Mayweather Jr., famous for one of the world's most audacious luxury watch collections, is also said to own a Bugatti Chiron. J Balvin, known for his bold aesthetic and passion for collecting rare items, has been seen wearing a transparent sapphire version worth over $1 million. Gucci Mane is believed to have owned a bespoke Bugatti Chiron tourbillon, similarly priced. The watch's true function is status displaying, but not in a subtle way. It is also storytelling through technology, a wearable object that conveys an obsession with engineering, luxury, and personality without explanation. And most importantly, it has no direct substitute. Nothing else does exactly what this watch does, both visually and mechanically. For this audience, good enough is never enough. The important thing is to own something that proves it transcends conventional limits. If it is so expensive and rare, is it a good investment? In my opinion, the Bugatti Chiron is not a financial investment in the traditional sense. Its extremely low liquidity, limited number of buyers, and the fact that resale depends heavily on finding the right collector at the right time mean it is not an asset you can buy and sell for short-term profit. However, it does offer something different. Its extreme scarcity, unique story, and pioneering position in the mechanical watchmaking industry give it lasting collectible value. My conclusion is simple. This is not an investment for profit. It is an investment in identity, status, and story. After a detailed analysis of the Bugatti Chiron watch, a few clear lessons emerge, and they do not just relate to watches. First, high prices are not always just marketing gimmicks. Sometimes, the high price is due to the product being genuinely difficult to manufacture. When you are working with special materials, extremely tight tolerances, and handcrafted parts, the cost comes from the effort, not from hype. Second, some things are expensive because they have real limitations. For example, you cannot speed up the crystal growth process. You cannot automate hand polishing sapphire without damaging it. And you cannot simplify a machine that is already operating at its limits. At that level, time becomes the biggest cost. That leads to the biggest lesson: time, mistakes, and human skill are the real factors determining price. You are not just paying for the final product. You are paying for all the failed attempts, discarded parts, and years of experience behind it. So what does this mean for you? My advice is simple. Know why you want something. Are you buying it for everyday use? Are you buying it for its value? Or are you buying it for the meaning it represents? It is also important to distinguish between luxury for use and luxury for meaning. Some expensive things make life better in practical terms. Others exist to tell a story or mark a milestone. The problem arises when those two things get mixed up. And remember, not every expensive item needs to be meaningful to everyone. Value depends on the person, the time, and the meaning behind it. Next, please leave a comment below about your thoughts on this video, and let me know what luxury topic I should analyze next. Your ideas could be the subject of the next episode.